What's your one thing? And my one thing as I unpack this is really simple. You are stronger than you think. You know, when we ask people that question, what's your one thing? For some people, you might get excited thinking about it. For some people, you might feel a little bit intimidated. But I believe for every one of us, it's the question that literally shapes our life and shapes our leadership. You know, when people ask me that question, you know, what's your one thing? I always tell them that you're stronger than you think. And I can tell you that my one thing never was in a title. It wasn't about a promotion. It wasn't about a degree, a 5-step plan, anything like that. My one thing actually came down to a moment. It came down to a decision. It came down to a line that I decided to draw in the sand. It was the day that I stopped having to feel like a leader and started choosing to actually become one. It's the day that I decided to remove the grip that self-doubt had on my life. You know, doubt doesn't just come around to try and hold you back. Doubt actually tries to take you out. But if you let it, doubt is the very thing that can actually wake you up and move you into your destiny. You know, many years ago, when I was building my network marketing company, I was standing in front of my team that I was supposed to be leading. We were getting ready to do a training. And from the outside, everything looked great. You know how sometimes we put that facade on, right? I had the opportunity. I had the title. I had the passion. But inside, I felt like I was just crumbling. I questioned every decision that I made. I started to shrink in the moments that I should have actually stood up. And I started to perform leadership instead of embody leadership. And I remember sitting there looking at all of these people on my team, looking back at me. And this question kept rolling around in my mind. These people are expecting me to lead them, but I don't even feel qualified to lead myself. Does anybody understand where I'm coming from? You ever been in that place before? The place where you know what needs to be done, but you're paralyzed by that voice in your mind that says, who do you think you are? That was me. And I thought that I could just push my way through it. I thought that if I worked harder, it would actually just simply go away and vanish into the night. But working harder didn't solve it. See, it wasn't a skill problem. I realized what it was an identity problem. And here's where I really want to just kind of dig in and get real with everyone. Doubt doesn't just make us hesitate. Doubt doesn't make you hesitate. It didn't make me hesitate, but I'll tell you what, doubt almost took me out. See, there was a season in my life when pressure, self-doubt, and the sense of failure, it got so loud in my mind that I began to believe the lie that the world and everyone around me would be better off without me. And I remember one night in 2006, I got up in a cold sweat. I took a pen, a pad, and a bottle of pills. I sat on the floor of my apartment. I was going through a season of my life that was horrible, going through a divorce with my son's mom after 10 years. I went from seeing my son, who was 3 at the time, every day to seeing him twice a week. And going into this massively deep, dark state of depression, and this business that I had spent 13 years of my life pouring my blood, sweat, and tears into just sunk faster than Titanic. And there I am on the floor of my apartment, writing a letter to my son, who was 3 years old at the time, trying to tell him when he got older why his dad took his own life. All I kept thinking is, I can't do this. I'm not enough. I'm failing everywhere. That was the lowest moment of my life. The night that doubt literally almost took me out, which is why I wrote my best-selling and award-winning book, Don't Let Doubt Take You Out. But in that very dark place that I was in, I heard another whisper laying on that floor. It wasn't of doubt. It was of truth. And being a man of faith, I know that that voice that I heard in my spirit was the voice of God. It wasn't loud. It wasn't flashy. But it said to me, this is not your finish line, Jerry. This is your new starting line. And in that moment, I made a decision not to have it all figured out, not to feel confident, but to live, to understand my one thing, that I was stronger than I thought. I decided that I was going to speak my truth boldly and to stop hiding behind a mask of leadership and start becoming the man and the leader that I was called and created to be. And that moment right there, that was my one thing. I decided I will not let doubt define me any longer. I decided I will not let fear dictate my future any longer. I decided I will not lead from wounds and scars. And what I learned was this: leadership doesn't start with your title. It starts with your truth. See, you don't get power when you arrive at the platform. You don't get power when you're standing on the stage. You get power when it's built in the fire, in the challenge, in the difficulties, when you lead from your identity and not from your insecurities. When you become magnetic, you stop leading from pressure and you start leading from your purpose. You don't have to control people because your clarity inspires them. And after that moment, I began to rebuild myself from the inside out. And the process in how I rebuilt myself became the foundational framework that I now share with every single person in my coaching programs. 3 pillars that rippled out of one decision. I teach people the pillar of elevating their leadership, right? Where your mindset, your emotional intelligence, your decisions become rooted in your truth, not in fear. I teach them about how to build high-performing teams, because great leadership is what builds trust, accountability, and momentum, not just simply results. I teach them about influential communication, because if people aren't moved by your words, they are not going to be moved by your vision. But as important as those pillars are, you have to do the first thing first, and that is this: choose to trust your own voice, even when the doubts in your mind are screaming louder than your actual confidence. See, what's your one thing? What's that belief? What is that shift? What is that moment that if you owned it fully, everything would change for you? Maybe it's not a tactic. Maybe it's not hiring somebody else or doing another meeting. Maybe it's this: that you finally stop leading from fear and you start leading from conviction. You stop waiting for permission and you start walking in your purpose. You stop letting doubt whisper you out of your destiny, as it almost did to me. Because the one thing that I do know is this: your voice matters. Your leadership is needed. And no matter what you're going through, you're stronger than you think. And your doubts, those self-doubts that we all get, that come into our minds all the times, right? It's not your disqualification. It is actually your invitation. It's your invitation to rise. It's your invitation to stand up, to get up, to move forward, to lead, to become the kind of leader who doesn't wait for a title because they've already made the choice. See, my friends, don't let doubt take you out. Let it call out the inner champion that lies within you, just like it did for me. And my one thing that can become your one thing is just understanding that you are stronger than you think. And when you leave here today from this great event, my prayer is that this message is something that you just won't remember the story, but you'll make a decision about your one thing. That one thing that can turn everything around for you. Because, my friends, your one thing might just be the thing that changes everything in your life as it changed mine. So I want to thank you so much.